This press conference is called essentially to provide a report on the ministry's accomplishments relative to its work program in 2024 and address any other topical issues. We're going to begin by inviting Commissioner Dennison to give some brief remarks. Then we're going to have Commissioner Bharrat seated just aside of Mr. Dennison, the Guyana Forestry Commission, to give some remarks. Then we're going to have Dr. Martin Patab, the Director of the Local Content Secretariat, to my right, to give some remarks. And we move straight into the presentation of Minister Bharrat. Thereafter, we have a question and answer session, and we hope to close after that. I want to assure you that we don't have 5 or 6 presentations today. Hence the reason you don't have the screen at the back. Be mindful the last time you guys said was too much information, so we provided a bit more condensed format today. We have the agreement? Perfect. So with that, let me invite Commissioner Dennison, followed by Commissioner Bharrat to provide their brief remarks, and then Dr. Patel. Ms. Dennison?
Thank you, PS. Good morning, everyone. Recognizing our Honorable Minister at the head table with my colleagues. My brief remarks represent a snapshot of 2024 for the Ggmc in particular, with of course context for the sector. The main commodities within the sector that have statistics and narrative from the Minister. But I must say on behalf of the material efforts of the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Ggmc, the performance in those regards was significant indeed, and especially to the gold sector, where there have been serious challenges with indifferent weather, strong competition for labor, perhaps poor grades within the mining estate, and where some assets may have been otherwise deployed. There were much better circumstances in other areas of production, except for diamonds, which have peculiar issues in the international domain. Among other areas, the Ggmc sought to improve dramatically the delivery of service, and this has been generally applauded by our customers. We intend to extend that outlook to our stations throughout the mining districts, but especially the nodes of Artica, Mahdia, Northwest, and past Peruni that are important hub in that Valley-Peruni corridor. Last year around this time, our customer service rating was in the high 80% range. We expect continual improvement in accord with our ISO 9001-2015 quality management commitment. The Ggmc has targeted several areas that we believe brought notable rewards. In technical areas, for example, improved gold recovery was evident in pilots where chemical processes were employed over mined out areas and where the recovery circuits were essentially mercury-free. For example, where fundamental aspects of genuine geological activities were undertaken, such as the establishing of 3 absolute gravity-based stations. This will be expanded going forward in 2025 and will contribute to our regional geological mapping in collaboration with Brazil in border areas. Significantly, the inception phase of a mineral mapping study of the Guyana's mineral resources by the consulting group Global Ventures Consulting has already seen exploration and development planning, which involve data consolidation and digitization, and intends to follow with comprehensive mapping, surveying, and such works. All towards a mineral inventory for Guyana that promotes world-class investment opportunities. You may note that this groundbreaking development stands on the continuing field surveys undertaken by Ggmc, such as at Bordeaux Headwaters Gap during 2024. Continuing with our technical advancements, Ggmc has procured a gold refining and recycling system, which will foster a value-added approach for gold products, as we have been collaborating to revive local gold smithing that has a tourism business aspect to it. Our mining school has conducted introductory and intermediate level gold smithing or jewelry courses, both in 2023 and in 2024, where 60 and 28 individuals respectively have received introductory and intermediate apprentice skills. The system can refine to 99.99% purity, 64 troy ounces in an 8-hour cycle. Additionally, with one of our long-standing geologists achieving qualified gemologist accreditation, specialized gemological tools, including a diamond tester, was procured, thereby having some service capability within the Ggmc. The Mine Services Division, which is key and mainstream to the Ggmc during 2024, maintained their services to the sector with training in mining and quarrying. They remain committed to capacity building initiatives for small and medium scale miners, focusing on safety and best practices. There has been a continuing drive to effect claim verification for licensing once they are found valid, and the clearing of the backlog in that regard is on track to be concluded by 2025, the end of 2025. Along with closer interaction with hinterland communities during 2024, there have been several requests from some sister communities to become involved in mining. We have facilitated generously and expect that our technical assistance to mining will expand further and continue to involve all of our technical divisions. Our Environmental Services Division has been the standard bearer again within the sector for their activities in compliance, safety, stewardship for regulation, and improving our standing with stakeholders relations, all in keeping with the LCDS 2030 relations and the initiatives as well. Through all of the field divisions, we have collaborated on health wellness and particularly vector-borne diseases. The Land Management Division has retained its ISO standing, but more importantly has set a template for ancillary divisions, namely admin and HR, to pursue ISO accreditation during 2024 with a view of achieving same in 2025. Admin and HR manages our assets on the ground and have adopted management tools including tracking to ensure efficiencies in logistics, deployments, and maintenance. Working closely with finance and other divisions, the availability of store stock and finances to our technical and field teams have been substantially streamlined. Revisiting land management, they have successfully allocated through 3 separate lotteries in multiple locations simultaneously 406 parcels. Reducing cycle times for the tenure application processes do not always attract attention until the myriad of transactions which have to be concluded accurately at the many different levels are highlighted in the process maps that our outreaches from time to time. With the expanded works that the Ggmc has been overlooking, including our special projects, such as interior roads and infrastructure maintenance in regions 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10, they have been committed to such works of approximately $2.8 billion during 2023 through 2024. Some 1,300 kilometers of road works have been in service and maintained for the mining sector access. For example, the Matthews to Port Taichung, the Mabura to Letem, the Linen Kokwani Yunanko Bisaruni, and the Itabali to Puruni are corridors of works on the special projects of the Ggmc. Again, the involvement of our ancillary divisions cannot be understated as they process financial and other transactions in fine time. The Ggmc has been responding to an increasingly litigious environment. Notwithstanding our ongoing efforts to resolve matters through our weekly open sessions, which also demonstrates accessibility to the Ggmc and myself and there as a commissioner. Our legal division is instrumental in managing these matters for proper representation. The legal division also is responsible for compliance matters under the AML-CFAF and has been key in ensuring that the commission, which is the supervisory authority for trade in gold and precious stones, is not unduly exposed to the risks associated with this business. While the oil and gas matters will be properly addressed later, it must be said that the Petroleum Division remains a key technical section within the Ministry of Natural Resources coordinating authority for the sector. The acquisition of and employ of industry-leading petroleum software enables more value and effectiveness in project monitoring as the growing technical oversight that is expected for 2025 is realized. All in all, as Ggmc manages greater data loads Our ICT architecture has been evolving. Our process and form are therefore being better coordinated through analyses. And from these bites of intelligence, we have an onboarding of even more refined approaches to our regulatory oversight by inspectorate activities involving a spectrum of proven technologies such as GPS, drones, GoPro, and satellite coverage, all informing strategically and progressively improving our outcomes for the compliance within the small and medium scale, while fostering efficiencies which will assist us in the monumental mandate of ensuring the Ggmc, the mining sector, and its associated industries remain relevant and a significant and sustainable pillars of our economy and well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, PS, Minister, members of the media. The forest sector continued to improve its performance, and 2024 was another good year of performance in terms of production within the forestry sector, whereby we were able to surpass the 2023 production target and also the target set for 2024. This is a testimony to our good governance in the forest sector, both at the policy level and at the concession management level. Compliance continues to be high priority, ensuring forests is managed in a sustainable manner and hence products harvested adherence to good environmental, social and legal standards. We continue to ensure the legality system is checked at each level and thus can conform to the highest level of compliance and traceability. The GFC places strong emphasis on resource management such as inventory and on-the-ground monitoring, checks at forest stations, lumberyard, points of export to ensure that the chain of custody systems remain intact. To comply with our own internal codes of practice and to support the LCDS and other international programs such as the EU flag and the PEFC certification system. To aid the production sector, the GFC has been working with the ministry in allocation of concessions both at the small and medium size level. And over the years, a number of concessions both at the small and large scale level have been issued, which has been the main focus is to aid production and to ensure adequate supply of materials both for the local and international market. For 2025 and beyond, the focus will be on expanding species utilization, increasing production, and strong emphasis on value added and improved quality of forest products in the marketplace. There have been a number of investments both at the primary and at the processing level in value added, and also at the primary level in extraction, both the equipment and also construction of roads and investment in kiln drying facility, etc., both to aid the primary production and also the value-added sector. We have also completed the National Forest Inventory Program, and data are being used for macro-level planning in concession allocation, and also more specific investor-friendly information that we made available. The work of the GFC, the reclamation project that we started in 2023, in Region 10, we expanded that to Region 6 and Region 8, where degraded and minority areas are being restored using native species. As we had alluded earlier, the Guyana signed on to the EU Forest Law Enforcement, Government and Trade Voluntary Partnership Agreement. And in 2024, the implementation phase continued, where we work with other agencies in building capacity to ensure that in 2026, we are issuing flag licenses. And this will ensure transparency and traceability and strong forest governance in the forestry sector. We had also developed a national standard which was endorsed by PEFC in March last year. And this year we will continue to work with companies and certifying bodies to ensure that companies become certified under this standard using the Guyana standard. This also adds credibility to the forest sector and to the chain of custody system. We continue to work with the LCDS Secretariat and Office of Climate Change in advancing work on the LCDS through expert reporting on forest change annually through our world-class MRVS system. And in 2025, this reporting will continue. The GFC has also been working with community forestry organizations, and we have 65 community forestry organizations in building the capacity both at the harvesting level and also at the governance level. We've also worked with the EU in gaining funding to set up processing facilities at Region 10 and Region 2, both to aid the production and the value-added segment in these communities, which will improve livelihood at the community level. In 2025, the GFC will continue to work with stakeholders at the primary and the secondary level to advance the productive capacity to ensure that there are adequate supply of raw materials both in the local market and also export potential. We like to commend the stakeholders and also the staff for the commendable effort in 2024 in supporting the transformation of the sector from 2020 onwards and ensuring production has been increasing and moving steadily. And we hope to continue this trend in 2025 and beyond in making the sector more robust and viable, and also ensure sustainable management at the concession level. So thank you very much, and also the ministry for the support over the 2024.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bogan and Mr. Benson, for the overview of the Ggmc and then the Guyana Forestry Mission. And now I invite Dr. Martin Patab, the Director of the Local Content Secretariat within the Ministry of Natural Resources, to provide an overview of the work of that Secretariat and achievements for the year ending December 31st, 2024. Dr. Patab?
Thank you, PS Minister, member of the media. Just a quick update on some of the things that we're working on with the Content Secretariat. As it relates to the total procurement opportunities for 2025, actually in the process of receiving those submissions from the various tier 1 companies with their deadlines within a few weeks. So hopefully by May next month we'll have an update as it relates to the projected procurement opportunities for 2025 and the actual spent, local companies spent for 2024. You will get those data will be derived from the submission of the various annual plans and the performance report. Just a quick update on the local content hub. I know this is something that's been in the meeting last year and something that's been working on, but of course in order for us to have finished product into the circularization of testing. So far we have received approval from the App Store. We're working on the approval for the Google Play, so once that we're in final stage of testing, so hopefully we'll have this app launched at the upcoming conference. The app of course will be accessible to anyone in smartphone basically. You'll see all opportunities there as related to the procurement, employment, etc. So anyone who's interested in working in the oil and gas industry will be options very, very interested in the food and product providing services. So let's say, for example, you're interested in accommodation, there will be options where you can pick to receive notification only for accommodation and not necessarily other corporate services. So it's going to help in terms of connecting locals with the tier 1 companies, and you're already issuing a notice to all tier 1 companies that are contracted that it's not mandatory for them to post all opportunities on the portal, which will link to the app. One of the things that we've been working on this year is what we call the payment monitoring framework. So we all know local content expenditure is one of the things we've been using to measure the success of local content. But that's just part of the success story. We want to know trace how money is being paid to local companies. So we're looking at we're working with contracted with local companies. But this can see as it relates to foreign payments or currency when they're making payments to local companies. The emphasis, of course, is to ensure that we utilize our local commercial banks. There are cases where payments have been made to companies and those payments have been made outside of Guyana. And then we are behind that, basically focusing focusing on local content spend. And we've seen last year and the year prior, the amount that we have recorded in terms of local content spend in terms of procurement opportunities in last year was somewhere around $500 million USD. And it's important that we focus on those foreign exchange. Of course, that would help in terms of course, build out and improve our foreign exchange reserve, import coverage, and of course, increase and enhance economic stability and growth of the economy. So, companies that are making payments outside of Guyana and not utilizing our local commercial banking system, I don't see how if a company is beneficially owned by Guyana is 51% and payments are being made outside of Guyana, those companies are individual and have to prove to us how is it that a company beneficially owned payments are made outside of Guyana in which they are. So, their local contents are typically in jeopardy if proper explanation isn't provided as a result of those payments are made outside of Guyana. We're also focusing on what we call the on manufacturing or advancing value added in the industry. One of the things that we're looking at is what we call the premium downhole drilling accessories. Last year we pushed heavily for this into manufacturing line. Before those parts were imported, we already have a local supplier who's now manufacturing some of those components value added, and we intend to expand those purchase orders going to the local companies. We're also looking at the pipes. Rather than importing finished product pipes, we're forcing companies, now working with companies to have imported lamp pipes. So those trading and etc. value added includes additional service putting in place and allowing local companies to grow and expand. This year, even though we haven't received the annual plan for this year, we expect the current opportunity to increase somewhere by 15 to 20%, and this is of course based on a 5-year master plan. And our projection is based, of course, on the increase of companies not only supply vessels, providing supply vessel services, medical services, almost 100% of medical services provided by local companies, and just an increase in machine and fabrication. So that's our update here from the
Thank you very much, Dr. Patel, for those updates on the local content secretariat and providing insight as to some of the plans for 2025. We now move in the substantive part of the presentation, where we invite Minister Vickram Bharrat, Minister of Natural Resources, to provide us with an overview of the work of the ministry in 2024 and some key aspects of topical issues that he'd like to address. Minister Bharrat.
Thank you, PS.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First of all, let me thank the staff of the Ministry of Natural Resources and its agencies for their commitment, their hard work, sacrifices, and dedication to the sector over the year 2024, which has been a very good year for the Ministry of Natural Resources and by extension our country. Also to you, our friends in the media, let me join with PS McKenzie in wishing you and your family a healthy, happy and peaceful 2025. We all know that it will be a busy year, especially for you, since it's an election year. But I trust that you will continue to do the good job that you've been doing in reporting factual, accurate news, with constructive criticism as always. I want to also thank you for your support of the Ministry of Natural Resources over the year 2024. We know that many media houses would have carried news and developments that were taking place in the natural resources sector during the course of 2024. So we want to show appreciation to you and ask that we continue working on building this relationship of reporting accurate news to the people of Guyana. Now, as I mentioned, the year 2024 has been a good year for the natural resources sector, mainly because of the significant increases that we've experienced in the productive sectors in almost all commodities under the ministry and its agencies, and also the significant amount of employment and revenue created within the sector across all commodity again. Now you would have heard from the Commissioner of Ggmc and the Commissioner of GFC. I want to start briefly on GFC, some short comments. And again, I want to commend the Commissioner and the team at GFC for turning around this sector, a sector that has been in serious problems when we took over, had been in serious problems when we took over in 2020. Over the last 4 years, regardless of battling COVID and the harsh weather conditions, they would have managed to turn around the sector. So much so that today we have many new investors or new players entering the forestry sector. Production, we have seen an increase in production from 2020 through to 2024. In 2024, we have seen an increase of over 20,000 cubic meters over the 2023 production. We have seen over 25,000 persons, Guyanese, employed, whether directly or indirectly, in the forestry sector. We have seen the addition of 12 new lumber yards, 25 new sawmills throughout the entire country. So it shows clearly that the confidence has been renewed in Guyanese and investors or stakeholders to invest in the forestry sector. We will work to our push to value added, to downstream processing. This has always been a target that we've been working towards. We intend to intensify our push towards value added, downstream processing in the year 2025 and beyond. And we would have seen from 12 new lumber yards, 25 sawmills, it certainly means that more and more people are entering into the value-added sector. Added to that, the number of investments in furniture factories, the Durville housing program, which is being expanded, and we will see increased production in 2025. We're also seeing a number of stakeholders investing, retooling, recapitalizing to ensure that the recovery rate has increased significantly. When we took over, the recovery rate was way below 40%. Today, some stakeholders can achieve as high as 70-75% recovery rate from a lot. That is quite a significant improvement over the last 2 years. We have seen a few stakeholders as well investing in kiln. So today we can boast that we have a number of companies engaged in kiln drying of wood. This leads to better quality of wood products. It leads to better export products as well too. So at the same time, we want to thank the stakeholders and the concessionaires, the over 60 associations that are involved in primary production in the forestry sector. In 2025, the GFC has been tasked or charged to look at the forest economy. How do we create alternative economic opportunities in the forests and forest communities other than just harvesting of trees? Now, this will tie into our low carbon development strategy, because our low carbon development strategy basically speaks towards keeping our forests intact, maintaining a very low deforestation rate, and I'm happy to say that we probably have one of the lowest deforestation rates in the world, even lower than our own target set in the low carbon development strategy. So moving towards value added and finding alternative economic opportunities in forested communities will significantly go towards reducing deforestation even further while keeping the sector viable. Because we have over 25,000, as I mentioned, 25,000 Guyanese directly or indirectly employed in the forestry sector. So it is important and imperative that as a government and as a country, we keep the sector viable. But how do we do that and at the same time preserve our forests, keep our deforestation rate at a minimum. Value added, looking at alternative economic activities in the forest. Already in the board from His Excellency President Ali, we spoke of the honey production, and we at the Forestry Commission, we're looking at the cultivation of bamboo, different varieties of bamboo in the mine-out areas, which can lend towards further economic opportunities in those communities. As was mentioned, we have worked with the Ituni community. We've established a furniture shop in the Ituni area. We're working towards doing a similar projects in Kukwani, in Oriala Sepruta, as well as in Region 2 in the Lima Sands area. Those projects would lend towards supporting the communities in the drive towards value added. There are many indigenous communities that have been using their funds from the low carbon development strategy to set up portable sawmills, to set up small workshops, and we have been supporting them from the Ministerial, from the GFC, so that they too can be engaged in value-added processing and thereby earning greater revenue and creating employment opportunities in those communities. Guyana too, as you have heard, is probably the only country, or I believe the only country in the world that has signed on to the Forest Partnership Agreement with the EU, as well as signing and ratifying the Voluntary Partnership Agreement, of which we are implementing now. We are poised and set that in maybe another year or so, or a year and a half from now, we can at least be flat licensed. That will make Guyana probably only the second or third country in the world that will receive a flat license through the EU flat program. This will boost our reputation as a timber producing country in terms of legality, sustainability. You heard that we are PFC certified. Again, one of the few countries in the world that are PFC certified. This will significantly boost our credibility as a timber producing country and aid in traceability, legality of our timber, as well as sustainability in terms of harvesting. So the forestry sector, I would say, is on solid footing. And again, I want to commend the commission staff of GFC. They would have been through a lot. We have managed together to turn around the sector and to improve investors' confidence in the sector, so much so that we have a number of persons reinvesting or new investors entering the sector today, and also expansion of existing operations within the forestry sector. So I can turn to mining, which is still one of the bedrock productive sector in our economy. Mining is actually the second highest contributor to our GDP. And we have seen major improvement across all commodities, almost all commodities in the mining sector in 2024. Now, I want to highlight in particular bauxite, because bauxite has been a success story over the last few years or so. And if I can give you the figures for bauxite, because we know the state of bauxite when we took over. When we took over in 2020, we were still suffering or trying to recover from the withdrawal of RUSA due to the mismanagement by the previous administration of the situation with RUSA in the Maurice River, putting over 500 persons out of jobs and a number of contractors, subcontractors out of business as well, mostly affecting the communities of Ituni, Kukwani, New Amsterdam to an extent as well, since they had the transshipment point at the mouth of the Maurice River. And again, the Forestry Commission will really work hard in those areas to ensure that we create employment and economic opportunities in those areas for those people. because without RUSA, it simply means that there were limited economic activities in the Berbice River. However, the Forestry Commission has done well in those areas. Most of those 65 forestry associations are in Region 10, especially in the Aichuni, Bukwani, Berbice area, where we have probably about 3,000 young people and women engaged in these associations in those areas especially. So forestry has played a great role in ensuring that they provide that support in those areas after the withdrawal of RUSA. However, with further investment and encouragement and the confidence that both sides has in the government and the economy, they've invested significantly over the last few years in the operation at the Montgomery mine and the Linden plant. So much so that we have seen a steady increase of bauxite over the last few years. And if I can just say to you that in 2023, I'll just give you an example, in 2023, the production in bauxite was 523,732 tons. In 2024, we have moved that production to 1,703,121 tons, an increase of over 200%. As a matter of fact, an increase of 225% in bauxite production in 2024 in comparison to 2023, way above the target set by the company itself. So this has been a real success story for us, especially in generating employment and economic opportunities in Region 10, more in particular the Linden, Aichuni, Bukwani areas. We have seen an increase in employment based on investment by the company. We have over 1,000 persons now working in the bauxite sector. That's an increase of about 200 to 300 persons in 2024. We will continue to see significant investment by the company. The commitment has already been made to continue investing in bauxite in Region 10, and that we will see even an increase to the 1.7 million tons in 2025. The company has invested in barges that can transport the ore to its transshipment point a few miles off the shore of Guyana. So now they're in a position to ship larger quantities of ore from Guyana to their destination. This, as you know, bauxite is also, or GMI, Guyana Manganese Company, is also part of the bauxite group of companies. So this improvement in logistics, especially the shipping, will also support the manganese company in Region 1 as well. The other success story that I can speak to in the mining sector is the quarry sector. We have seen massive increases in the quarry sector, and you know the kind of development that is taking place in our country, both by the government as well as the private sector, not only in the oil and gas sector, but we've seen investment across all sectors, agriculture, tourism, in our ministry, mining, forestry. So the demand for building materials have been increased significantly, placing a challenge to us at the Ministry of Natural Resources to ensure that we can answer the demand or respond to the demand in materials. We have seen significant investment in the quarrying sector, especially production of aggregate stone. I'll just give you a comparison of last year to this year. In the year 2023, the production of stone by metric ton was 1 1,851,152 tons, 1.8 million. Bear in mind, when we took over in 2020, the production was 737,000 tons. We would have moved that from 737,000 tons from 2020 to 1.8 million in 2023, and a further increase, significant increase in 2024 to 3,338,760 metric tons. A significant increase in the production of stone aggregates of stone. This is as a result of, again, the confidence by investors. We have seen over the last 2 years, 2023-2024, a number of new quarries coming into operation. To date, when we took over, there were 7 operational quarries. Today we have 17 operational quarries, and a few of the existing quarries expanding the operation, the investment, and thereby the production. We are poised to see maybe another 5 new quarries coming into operation in 2025, thereby carrying up our production way above the 4 million mark. However, as you know, the demand is still high, and demand will continue to increase based on the infrastructure that is taking place across the country, and with the Ministry of Housing poised to award or reach its target of over 50,000 house lots. It means that the demand will significantly increase with people building their homes, leaving out the massive expansion of our infrastructure across the country in all regions. So the Ministry of Natural Resources and Ggmc will continue to work with our stakeholders so that we can satisfy local demand. We've been doing that in the forestry sector. The forestry sector has seen an increase in production, as I mentioned, by over 20,000 cubic meters. But what has happened is that the demand locally has increased significantly, that we have reduced, there is a slight reduction in our exports because our intention is to satisfy the local market force. So some may say it's better to export and earn more from it, but what will happen to our local market? We cannot focus only on export market while local consumers cannot access lumber or building materials. So the idea by the Ministry and the government is to ensure that local demand is satisfied. So our commitment, and there is a commitment by investors to ensure that we increase the production of aggregate to meet local demand as soon as possible. Sand, for example, we have seen a massive increase in sand production from 8 million to 11 million, 8 million in 2023 to 11.7 million in 2024. In loom, we have seen an increase from 949,000 tons to over 1.7 million tons of loom from 2023 to 2024. In gold, we have seen, for the first time in 9 years, we have seen an increase in production from the previous year. As you're well aware, we had our peak production in 2016. That is when the Guyana gold field, former Guyana gold field, and the Aurora gold mine, and Troy Resources had just started to produce. We had peaked our production, and then from 2016, every single year, we had seen a decline right up to 2023, sorry. In 2024, we have started to see a reversal in production, thereby seeing a small increase between the 2024 and 2023 production and declaration. However, with the increase in gold production over 2023, it has brought in an increase in revenue of $181 million US. Total earnings of $989,996 US in 2024, in comparison to $808,638 in 2023. So we have seen a massive increase in revenue in the gold sector in 2024 in comparison to 2023. And I believe this is an encouraging sign for our country, for the sector, and for the stakeholders. So much so that we are seeing now that a number of key stakeholders are expanding or restarting their mining operations, and also there are new players or new stakeholders entering the sector. I say restart the operation because one challenge has been that a number of our medium-scale producers in Guyana would have been focusing on other economic opportunities and investments. Many of them have invested in the oil and gas sector. They've invested in the service sector, in hotels and other areas. And they would have reduced their operation in the mining sector. So we've been working with these stakeholders to increase their operation once again, and some of them to even restart the operation in gold mining, so that we can see even a further increase in 2024. What Ggmc has been tasked with to do in 2025 is to improve monitoring across the mining sector, which is key and critical to ensure that our production is increased and there is an eradication, or we stop the raiding by miners, and to ensure also that all the gold produced is sold to the Guyana Gold Board, dealers, or licensed traders. We've tasked the Ggmc to ensure that monitoring capability is increased, even if we need to start or encourage the use of technology, then we need to do that. We have also, as mentioned, allocated several new areas through lotteries, especially in the Matthews Ridge area, and the Peruni area, and Madia area as well too, which are some of the key mining districts. So it simply means almost 500 small miners in 2023-2024 would have had access to their own land, and those miners will soon go into operation. So the prospect for mining and gold mining looks good for 2025. However, there are many challenges that we're still faced with in the sector, weather being a big challenge. And over the last 3 years, we have moved from flooding in 2021 to drought in 2023. And as you know, gold mining is affected seriously by the weather. Labor also continues to be an issue, as being deprived by many miners. That labor is an issue, and you know that across all sectors, because of the amount of investments and economic opportunities available across all sectors in the country, it has put a strain on the labor force, with many persons moving away from the mining sector and being gainfully employed in other sectors. We are also working with the miners to increase their recovery rate, because that has been a challenge for miners. With the large-scale producer increasing their production significantly in 2024, mainly due to the investment and their high recovery rate. Today, the Zijin company has increased their production significantly and is boosting almost a 95% recovery rate. which is very good industry standard. However, our small and medium scale miners, we are working with them to ensure that they too can have a higher recovery rate, because our local miners have been struggling with a 40-45% recovery rate. We believe that we can work together in increasing or improving that recovery rate significantly, thereby making the sector more productive and increasing production for our miners. The other challenge we're faced with is areas that have been reworked over a number of years that are accessible. So you will have heard from the Commission the amount of money that is being spent on infrastructure to open new areas, to maintain the existing areas. It is an expensive venture, especially to open new areas and put infrastructure so that miners can access new areas. In 2025, that is a challenge that we are faced with, but that is something that the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission is preparing to work towards and preparing access to new lands so that miners can access and start producing in those areas. Now, as I mentioned, the Aurora Gold Mine, or the Zijing Group company, we recently visited that company. They have an employee currently over 2,000 employees. That's a significant increase. They have been investing a lot, especially in underground mining. Today, the group boasts at least 2,300 employees. They are also poised to increase that. We have Reunion Gold, as you are aware, we signed that agreement in 2024. They will start, or they have already started initial works. They will start construction of the mine in 2025-2026, creating another 1,000 to 1,500 jobs, especially for residents in the Martica surrounding areas. As a matter of fact, we've been working with that company to establish a training center in the Region 7 area, so the persons can be targeted and trained to work with that mine. We've encouraged the other companies to do similar, engage in similar activities, because training is essential to ensure that we are productive in the natural resources sector. And since we're speaking on training, I want to turn to oil and gas. And I think you would have seen the President post today. Another batch of 25 young Guyanese have graduated from the Guyana Technical Training College. That's the 2025 batch. In 2024, it was at the graduation, where 24 young Guyanese again graduated from the program at the Guyana Technical Training College in Maurice. And I think all of the 24 are working on the Unity FPSO offshore. So the training center will continue to provide training for young Guyanese so that they too can access jobs in the oil and gas sector. We've been working to improve the standard and certification of our young people, especially because we don't want to boast of Guyanese being employed in the oil and gas sector when the employment is at the lower end of the scale. We believe that we can train our people to work at the technical level too in the oil and gas sector. And that is exactly what we've been doing at the Guyana Technical Training College. We have a number of students also on scholarship. We have an agreement with CNOC, and we have close to about 10 students on scholarship in China presently through a program with CNOC. Those young people will study and return to work in Guyana in the oil and gas sector. So, yes, we can boast that we have over 6,500 Guyanese working in the oil and gas sector, but we want to be comfortable to say that these Guyanese are working in technical areas as well, and they're not just laborers or cleaners or helpers on FPSO or drill ships, but they're technical officers and engineers on those drill ships and FPSO. So that has been a target that we've set ourselves, and I think we are working towards achieve that. We've already seen results from that with a number of young Guyanese being gainfully employed offshore Guyana. We will see even more young Guyanese being employed with the addition of our fourth FPSO in 2025. Our fourth FPSO, the One Guyana FPSO, should be the largest among our fleets. This will be the fourth FPSO and the largest one. It's set to be, it's set to start production in late 2025. We are also poised, as you know, we have signed a license for the Waru and Vickram developments. Those FPSOs are under construction. So in another 2 to 3 years, we should see, in addition to the One Guyana, we should see the Aritu and the Jaguar FPSO. The Aritu and the Jaguar FPSO joining the fleet, taking it to 6 FPSOs in another 2 to 3 years from now. While our production is being ramped up, we are holding the companies to the work program of exploration activities, including Exxon. The exploration activities is ongoing offshore. And with that, you know, it brings significant opportunities and employment for our people. As you're aware too, the gas to energy project is on stream. You would have seen only last week we were on site. The media was invited, and we would have signed that agreement for the loan with the U.S. Ggmc, thereby ensuring that the project is financed and it will be completed as promised, bring the benefits that will be derived from it, and that is the reduction in electricity, reliability of electricity, clean electricity in the context of climate change, and ensuring that we can be competitive, especially in the manufacturing industrial sector. And already there are requests by many companies locally to be engaged and to move towards value added. I can tell you, for example, Bosai, we're engaging them in looking at the possibility of an alumina plant at some point in time, providing that we can provide cheaper electricity in excess that would be available. So already we are seeing signs and we are seeing indication that these companies are willing to forward invest in value added once cheap electricity is available. So I will probably stop there and allow you to ask your questions, and I'm sure out of the questions we will have a good discussion, and we can also share more information with you. We have a number of technical officers here as well too, in all the areas in forestry, in mining, in oil and gas, and I'm sure they'll be able to provide any additional information that you request of us, so that we can bring clarity to any issue raised or any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Bharrat, for that. So we're going to commence the question and answer session. As usual, what we try to do is take about 5 or 6 questions, allow the minister to respond, or you may designate one of the senior officers from the Ggmc, the Forestry, or even the Ministerial itself to respond. Right? If there's issues that you want to discuss with either one of myself or the officers after, you can definitely do that. Alright? So with that, I recognize Ms. Marshall's hand. So I see a few new faces, so you just help me by when you take the mic, identify yourself, okay? Thank you very much. And please, Mr. Garcia, which makes you comfortable, all right?
Good day, Sajjan Marshall, News Source. Minister, I noticed you mentioned the revenues generated from gold production. Could you say what exactly was the gold production for 2024? On the issue of illegal mining, could you say how many, if any, illegal sites were detected and or shut down in 2024, and the magnitude of those illegal operations? On the topic of smuggling and under declaration, I know this was a big topic, a big issue in 2024. Last year we heard of allegations of gold smuggling involving businessman Tamish Jagmohan, and of course there was the U.S. actions involving the Mohammeds. Could you say if the Ministry of Natural Resources and by extension Ggmc would have launched an investigation into these and other allegations of smuggling and on the declaration, and if so, what were the findings? Still on the issue of smuggling and on the declaration, with respect to the Mohammeds, could you say if the license, the dealer's license and or the gold mining permit were suspended? I know initially we weren't given a clear answer in 2024. And mining accounted for 48% of workplace deaths. If you could address the issue of safe practices that are being encouraged in these mine sites with respect to gold mining, those are my first sets of questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall, for those 8 questions. Right. I recognize the young lady here and then the young lady who I know.
Answer all of her questions first.
No, let's get some more, but the questions maybe cross-cutting.
Good morning, everyone. Davina Baggers of Country News. First of all, for perhaps Minister or the Mr. Denson, former Minister Raquel Trotman, in his new book, spoke of a safe that contains a large quantity of diamonds and gold that was seized over time and controlled by Ggmc officers. Could you say what is the status of the safe in terms of perhaps how much gold has been seized to date and how government deals with those minerals? Additionally, can Minister Bharrat say whether this year's budget will see allocations for independent verification of Guyana's oil, specifically in terms of meters? We heard Vice President Barajagir spoke of this before. And on the gas to energy issue, we know that there's an arbitration matter and the second claim was made by the contractor. Could you provide an update on this, as well as your plans, sir, Minister Bharrat, to modernize the oil sector this year? Thank you. Those are my initial questions for now.
Or you want to pause?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, fine. No. Anyone else any question before we open the doors? I see young lady and then
Good day, Vanessa Bashir, Country News. In relation to the second staff block audit, can the Minister say if the 60 days has elapsed for excellent to this one? And can you also provide an update on the first audit?
Hello, Kimal King for Reuters. Could you please provide a figure for the full year average daily crude production for 2024? And is government in negotiations with CGX Energy and Frontier Energy to resolve what could be termed as a dispute over the quarantine block license? Or do you expect the parties to move on to arbitration or a sole expert?
Thanks, Kimon. I think we'll take those questions now, and then we'll probably come after another round. Those responses. Okay? So probably Ms. Denson will go first.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the Minister will give the actual gold production and the revenues. I don't have with me actual number of interventions we've made over the year for persons who have complained about raiding or whom we have had to respond to for raiding. But just to put this in context, within the week of the last 2 or 3 weeks of December, we've had maybe about half a dozen interventions in one location alone, where we go. A week after you go back. A week after you go back again. So if we keep track of that, and that's not the only area where that's going on, I would figure that we have quite a few hundred of those activities that we would have been responded to over the year. In fact, we would really have to do a tally, because it's just a natural occurrence that in our itinerary for our officers, inspectorate officers, and going out there, they intervene where they observe, or if we get intelligence, we go and we intervene. And sometimes the intelligence comes by Facebook or other things. The ministers, people who will send them and they will send it to us, and we go on, we go on, we go. So I would have to generate that statistic of how many interventions we've made across our activities there. But raiding is a part of life. For mining, it is unfortunate that there is not a sense of self-regulation among operators, and we have been covering it to some extent by treating with the same project that I mentioned, verification of claims. We're about 80% in that activity, and as I said, we're on to get that finished by the end of 2025, because it's the opportunity that exists for properties that are in that shadow of whether they're going to be licensed or not, that a lot of raiding, that opportunistic situation for raiding takes place. So we have been covering that with the fact that we've been dealing with the verification system. Let me speak a little on the deaths. We have ongoing outreaches. In fact, for environmental division alone, this is not in terms of mines and what is happening with geological or in the field. All our officers in the field essentially act as officers who will be looking for where persons are not in compliance or not conducting their operation properly. But for environment alone, they had 104, this is a statistic, forgive me, for 2024, 104 operations in the field for compliance. This is going out to reach persons in the field, to talk to them, to demonstrate, and give them guidance and awareness of how to operate properly. They've had and encountered 509 miners. They've operated and they've been in communities of 6 indigenous communities within the districts. And there, because a lot of these communities have now decided that they want to do mining. And there, we have encountered and spoke with and treated with 274 residents and 55 mining operations directly. And that's just for environment alone, the environmental division alone. So it isn't a case where we have not been promoting and running behind compliance for operations within the regulations, especially when we know there are weather issues. Like if rain comes, we know that that's the time when we need to up our game. So it isn't a case where we haven't been doing that. And unfortunately for 2024, we've had, I think it's about 11 mine fatalities. Not all of them were actually mine related, but there were 11 fatalities in the sector anyhow. And that's way too much. Last year in 2023, sorry, I think we had 8. But it's something that we have to continue dealing with in a systematic manner, just getting the message out there, giving the technical assistance that is required and that we've been doing all along. Let me make a little comment. I haven't read former Minister Chapman's book. I haven't read it, so you got one for me. But with respect to a safe goal that we may be talking about, I'm glad that you would have mentioned the goal that diamonds are safe. Those are reported on in our financials, and just recently we have actually handed over, well, liquidated to the board, sold to the board, all of the main stock of coal that we have. I can't say offhand how much it is, but we sold it off. We will collect our revenues from that, and we will also have kept what the history of those pieces of gold are related to. So if perchance there's any case that still is languishing in court, we will have a record of what it pertained to and how much would be an escrow for that. So I can tell you it's not in the order of hundreds of ounces. My recollection is probably in the order of maybe about but it's not a huge amount. Okay, we still have diamonds that we have to liquidate, but we do that when the price is a little better. And I think I will stop there for the things that I can competently respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Denison, for providing the clarity on those few issues. And if I may just add, on the issue of the compliance and enforcement checks, we did allude to the work done by the Ggmc Environmental Department. I just wanted to provide for statistics for the purposes of the video. That is to say, is that the sector as a whole would have planned 950 compliance checks for 2024, and working in conjunction with the compliance department of the ministry and the Ggmc, we executed 2,671 compliance checks. This is outside of the routine work of the mine officers. We did 2,671, and that is related to inspecting miners for infractions and these other kind of stuff. And more importantly, the mine school and training center of the Ggmc also is conducting our training program as it relates to mine safety and other operational matters. As Mr. Denson pointed out, one life lost is too many, and we have been working with all the necessary entities, including the Ministry of Labor, as it relates to providing the technical assistance needed to persons operating in the field. And very quickly on the issue of the small amount of metals and minerals that have been held by the Ggmc, that is done in conjunction with the Ggmc's Act and the financial regulations, whereas any illegal activity which the Ggmc conducts, similar activity they mentioned here, the metals are seized and they go through the litigation system. Once the matter is ended, if the court decides that it has to be returned to the party, is returned to the party, of course with the necessary royalty and so forth. If for some reason the Ggmc is determined based on the level of investigation that the parties do not deserve to get metal, those are actually sold to the Guyana Gold Board. I should mention, as part of its annual financial statements, those metals are declared to the audit office and other relevant entities. I can assure you there's no, probably is the use of language, there's no massive safe with any such metal or so. It's the small infractions that persons would have done. Very quickly, let me provide an update also on the audits. There are 3 audits in question. There is the 1999 audit, as you alluded to first, that was done by IHS. That report would have been submitted to the Exxon. Exxon has responded with some additional review to be done. I should mention from the get-go is that the audit is being led directly by the Guyana Revenue Authority, who's been designated by the Minister responsible for petroleum as the entity responsible for those audits. The Ministry of Natural Resources, and by extension the Ggmc, is providing technical and regulatory support to the work of the GRA. But rather than refer you to the GRA, we could provide the update now to make it easier. Alright? So the Exxon has written to the GRA through the Minister, essentially asking for a forward extension to review the claims regarding the 1999-2017 audit, and that time period elapses shortly. To be clear, the exceptions total $240 million, and there's been no change in that from government standpoint. In relation to the second audit, the report has been completed and is being presented to Exxon. This is the 2018-2020 audit, and that work is being undertaken by VHE Consortium in association with some international consultants. That report has been tabled to Exxon. They responded with some need for some additional information, which the GRA and the ministry has provided to them, and the review process is currently ongoing to that audit also, right? The 2021-2023 audit, in case you guys didn't notice, as Minister promised, following the public advertisement, that audit was awarded to VHE Consultants in association with Martindale, Squire Patterns, and a Norwegian technical firm, and they've commenced field activities. That's for the period 2021-2023, and the audit sum totals roughly about 19.6 billion thereabouts. This is the quantum spent for the 3 years, right? And that audit is commenced in November of 2024 and is expected to be completed by March of 2025. The auditors have already submitted the entry the inception reports and their entry documents to the Guyana Revenue Authority. There's been technical working sessions with the Guyana Revenue Authority and the auditors along with Exxon, who've been providing all the necessary documents. There's been full cooperation on the part of Exxon, and so far everything is going smooth. We also have a number of capacity building activities happening shortly, which members of the Ministry of Natural Resources, the GRA, the Audit Office, Ministry of Finance, Bureau of Statistics, and other entities in Guyana will be provided the training from the international consultants, and that is progressing quite fine. And once we get to the stage where the report is submitted by the end of March, the GRA will advise the Minister according in relation to that. So thank you very much for that, and I'll ask Minister to kindly respond to the other questions posed by the media.
Thank you. Meantime, the members of the media who will have posted questions, and yes, Commissioner Dennison for the response to some of the questions. I just want to add to what Commissioner Dennison and PS would have mentioned on those particular areas, especially with reference to the mining debts. Now, this is a big concern of ours. I can tell you that for sure. Every single incident has been investigated by Ggmc in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor. And as was mentioned, one death is too many. That is how we take it serious. However, we need the support of miners too. Yes, Ggmc will do all that we can within our powers to do, but we also need the support and the cooperation from miners at the same time. Because we have seen deaths in 2024. For example, one I can recall clearly. Miners working at 1 a.m. in the morning and a pit collapsed. I'm sure you can recall that incident. Now, that should not have happened. And it is the responsibility of in that incident of the miners too, to look at their own health and safety. So I've seen another incident where a tree fell and killed someone. That is sad, it's unfortunate, but there are instances too where it is not only because of lack of monitoring from Ggmc, but it's also in some cases carelessness and negligence by a few miners within the sector. So I want to call on miners why we at Ggmc will improve our monitoring, will focus a lot on health and safety, especially within the main mining districts. We also need the cooperation and support of the miners to deal with this specific matter. The Ggmc in 2025 will lend more technical support to miners as well as more training for miners too, because we think that is essential and that is critical. We need to stop this perception or concept that miners can just go and dig a pit and go in and find gold. We need to do it properly and we need to do it in a safe manner. But we all know that this sector, and I'm not making an excuse for Ggmc, but the sector is not an easy sector to manage. Forestry, by comparison, is far easier to manage because it's not easy, and I would normally say it's not easy for a man to run away with a truckload of wood or a big log on his shoulder. But compare that with gold, or compare that with diamonds, and look at the terrain, look at our terrain, look at how difficult it is to access certain areas, and you would understand the constraints and difficulty we have at Ggmc with ensuring that we provide technical support, that we monitor, that we assist miners. So we, at the same time, we need the cooperation from miners at the same time. While we will increase our resources and our capacity, it is essential that there's a good working relationship between miners and the Ggmc to reduce fatalities or accidents in the mining sector. But I want to reassure you that safety is our #1 concern across all the sectors under the Ministry of Natural Resources. Forestry is the same, in oil and gas it's the same. And we must appreciate too that oil and gas has brought a different level of health and safety within our country and within the workforce, and we're trying to replicate that across all the sectors. For example, we have asked the GFC to work with the sawmills and the lumber yards to ensure that workers are properly equipped, that you don't go into a sawmill and you see a worker with a slippers, a rubber slippers and a sharp pants and a vest, as we say, but they're properly attired with safety gears, and we need the cooperation with stakeholders to ensure that this happens. We need to move to a different level. At the same time, in the mining sector, we need to do the same to ensure that forest workers are equipped and their priority, the miners' priority with regards to health and safety of the workers is important and of paramount. So we are trying to replicate the kind of, or the level of health and safety exhibited in the oil and gas sector, which I must say I'm very pleased with the kind of health and safety that it is being practiced in the oil and gas sector, that it is being replicated across all the sectors. And we even see in the construction sector now, many contractors moving towards having better equipment and outfit and apparels and everything for their workers. So it's a work in progress, but I agree that one life, loss of one life is too many. On the issue of illegal, well, we call it raiding and not illegal mining, because what you find is that sometimes some hook knockers or small miners would actually encroach or go on other stakeholders' properties and conduct mining activities. So we term it as raiding. In some cases, the property holders will give permission to the small miners. And you know what happens in the interior. There is no proper agreement. And when that small miner finds gold or finds the string, as we say, in the mining area, then those persons are evicted or they're put off the land. And that is why we would have recognized that, and that is why we went on this this process of ensuring that small miners can access their own blocks too, that they can have access to land. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we have done lottery in the Bartica area, we have done it in Region 1, we have done it in the Madi area, and put together over the last 3 to 4 years, I can say safely, over 1,000 small Guyanese miners now have access to their own blocks. So we have seen a significant reduction in raiding or small miners going on other properties owned by other miners. Now, what we were faced with too is that in 2020, for example, we had over 18,000 claims to verify. That was the backlog as mentioned by the commissioner. Now that posed a problem because in the regulation it states that once a miner stakes a claim that is defined an area and he puts up his board with his claim name and everything, date and so, he can then go to Ggmc, make an application, and once the application is in the system, he can go back and start mining, regardless whether the verification has been done or not. That is what existed. And when you have 18,000 claims to be verified in the backlog, then it created a serious problem for us. So we have worked over the last 3 years or so to reduce that backlog. So much so I think we are about 2,000. We have reduced that to about 2,000 unverified claims today. But while we are clearing the backlog, we have put system in place that when a miner finds a piece of land, stake a claim, comes in and make an application, then we said, hold, we are going to come and verify that within a month or within 3 to 6 weeks, sorry. We are going to come and verify that within 6 weeks. Once we come and verify it, and there is no encumbrance, then we can give you the go-ahead, we can give you the claim license to start mining. We have introduced that system at Ggmc. And all these systems have basically put a better arrangement for miners in place, and does that basically not eradicate, but minimize the amount of raiding that we are seeing in the mining regions throughout the country. But once we can clear that backlog completely, then I believe that we'll be in a much better position in terms of monitoring and moving towards eradicating raiding to an extent. Now, the question on gold smuggling. Now, we have had some successes in 2024, and you would have seen that from the media reports. This is outside of the Mohammed's matter. We have seen a few persons being held at the airport. At one time, I think they were taking out over 200 and something ounces of gold. So we have intensified the operation, which is still ongoing. However, for obvious reasons, I will not go into too much details on the operation, and you know why. But I can say to you that the operation is ongoing, and it involves a number of agencies, including the Ministry of Natural Resources. So that is an ongoing process, and will continue and intensify. We've been getting information, and we act on information as we get it. And we're encouraging any Guyanese or any person with information, share it with us. Because sometimes it's easy to say, oh, I know this, or I know that, or I've seen this, or I know about this. But then if you don't send it to us, and we don't have that information, then we can't act on the information. It's the same with policing. If people don't share information with the police, they can't do their work effectively. Similarly with us. Even if the media you have information and you want to share it with us privately, share it with us, and I can assure you we will act on information. because we've been acting on almost every piece of information that we've received over the last few years or whatever illegal activity there is within the sector. With regards to the Mohammed's matter, it remains the same. The Ministry of Natural Resources is not the relevant ministry to investigate. The report from the President, the Vice President, I think the AG is mentioning too, that we're still awaiting for the information. We've written formally for that information. To date, we have not received information, so that is where the matter is right now. I cannot say forward on it because I don't have any additional information on it. And I don't want to mislead you either. With regards to the license permit, for example, the dealership license, it's renewed yearly. So I'm sure at some point in time, Mr. Thompson is here, we'll move towards the process of licensing dealers for 2025. I cannot say at this point in time who those applicants are, because the process is ongoing, or who will be given the license. We'll go through that process, and I'm sure that at some point in time soon, once we issue those licenses, then we can say to you X, Y, Z have been issued license export board from Guyana. However, in the year 2024, we only had 6 export license issued to Guyanese or Guyanese companies. Only 6. So it's not a whole lot. However, I just want to mention, because I don't think a lot of people are aware that there is something that we call a trader's license, which is different from dealer's license. Now, a miner can either sell gold to the Guyana Gold Board, and I want to encourage all miners to ensure that they sell their gold to a legitimate legal buyer. And a legal buyer in Guyana, legal buyers in Guyana, one, the Guyana Gold Board, of which we are producing or providing a number of incentives to miners if they sell to the Guyana Gold Board. For example, we have a program where once you reach a certain target, there is duty-free concession on vehicles that will be used in your mining operation. Recently, the President has given forward incentives that if miners declare a certain amount and they have one dredging excavator, then we can give concession on parts coming in for that excavator or that dredge. We have those incentives in place now. Once miners sell to the Guyana Gold Board. So there's a number of incentives to sell to the Guyana Gold Board. However, as I mentioned, there are also dealers. Last year there were only 6 licensed dealers. This year we are in the process of reviewing or accepting new application. Now there are also, Ggmc also issue what we call trader's license. And I want to encourage anyone who has the capacity and reaches the criteria to apply for a trader's license. A trader basically can buy gold from a miner, but they cannot export the gold. So traders operate in the mining districts. For example, we have what we call the landings or the shops. In the interior, some of them are licensed traders. So they usually buy gold from the miners, and then they will either sell it to the Guyana Gold Board or they sell it to a dealer who can export it. Because it's only the dealers and the Guyana Gold Board can export gold legally from this country. But traders can't buy gold. And there are many traders that sell the gold to the Guyana Gold Board, or they are linked to dealers that they go out into the mining districts, they buy the gold, and then they sell it to dealers who can export it. So we have that layer too as well. So it's not only the dealers and the Guyana Gold Board. The Guyana Geology and Mines Commission will soon put out the criteria that is required for a trader license. I want to encourage Guyanese who are interested to apply. to become a legitimate buyer of gold in Guyana. And we want to encourage them to go into the mining districts and purchase gold from miners. Now, we have met last year, early last year too, we have met with the goldsmiths in Guyana, most of them, and we have mentioned to them and encouraged them that they must buy their gold from the Guyana Gold Board. So it's not only one area, we're working from almost every single area to ensure that there is full compliance in the sector. But as I mentioned to you, sometimes it's easy to beat up on the sector and Ggmc, but you got to realize the complexity and how difficult it is to manage the sector too, and the terrain in which our officers operate, and the risk as well in doing their job. Now, there was another question, the gold production, if I can give you the figures to close out for us. In 2023, our production was 432,113 ounces. In 2024, production is 434,067 ounces. However, as I mentioned, that translates an increase in revenue from 2023 to 2024 of over $180 million US. Also, thanks to the favorable gold price, which I hope will continue at that rate so that our miners will enjoy the benefits from their trade as well too. Moving on, Mr. Denison would have addressed the issue with the safe. I don't want it to go across or sound. I myself haven't read the book, but I don't want it to go across as if there is a big safe full with gold and diamonds at the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. And besides, it's part of the financial, it must be accounted for in any case. And Mr. Denison explained that fully. PS would have explained where we are on the audits right now. The 2097 to 2017. I want to assure you that the final report submitted is the $214 million US. Right, so I just wanted to state that again clearly, because I know we had an issue with that, and we discussed it at our last press conference, of which we apologize to for the mix-up at the same time then. But I want to assure the media and the people of Guyana that the final report that we will have submitted speaks to $214 million US of expenses that we are not agreeing to. Yes, would have mentioned the tort audit, and the idea is to bring it up to date. We would love to reach the position where in 2025 we're doing the audit for 2024. Right? And move on like that. Unfortunately, the first one, 1999 to 2017, that's a long time, but we're bringing it up to date now. Similarly to the EITI report, you can recall we had an issue in the past too. I'm happy to say that we would have submitted our 2022 EITI report long before the scheduled deadline of December 31st, 2024. And we are currently working on our 2023 report, which will be submitted again long before the deadline of 31st December 2025. So we are way ahead of our reporting with regards to the extractive industry. Moving on to I think the other questions relate to the oil and gas sector. So I wanted to deal with mining first. With regards to the oil and gas sector, I didn't spend much time on it because I know Vice President every week will speak on the sector and share a lot of information with you. And there is no secret in the oil and gas sector in the way we manage the oil and gas sector. I believe this is probably one of the few countries, and I mean, looking at it, look at Suriname, for example, you look at Namibia, these new countries, Ghana, and I've been following the news in those countries, and I don't think there is any other new producing or producing country that is as transparent as Guyana in ensuring we let the media and the people know of the developments taking place in the oil and gas sector. Besides from being one of the better managed oil and gas sector among the new oil producing countries, I think we are probably the most transparent also with regards to the new oil producing countries managing the oil and gas sector. Additionally, we are probably the fastest in terms of development, moving from exploration to production among new oil producing countries as well too. So there's a lot of positives to look at in the oil and gas sector. Sometimes I don't think we highlight them as much as we should. Sometimes we look at we're Guyanese, sometimes we don't look at the 99 good things. We just look at the one and we try to intensify that one and sometimes even sensationalize it. But we must be honest in our reporting, and we must also accept that the sector has really advanced in a short period of time. We have put a very good framework in place to manage it. We have been very transparent with the Vice President speaking every single Thursday, with us providing information to you from time to time as requested, with the President speaking on the matter as well, the Attorney General, the Minister of Finance, all speaking on the oil and gas sector. So there is so much information out there, which is good because I believe almost every Guyanese know what is happening in our oil and gas sector. I'm not sure that many other countries in the world that their citizens can speak from such an informed position with regards to their oil and gas sector like the Guyanese. I've been in my Pony Branch Road on, I think I was there Sunday, and I was engaging some rice farmers, but they weren't speaking about rice farming. They were speaking about oil and gas. And I was amazed at the knowledge that the farmers actually have acquired of the oil and gas sector. And I think it is good, and I think the government has done a good job in ensuring that people they're aware of what is happening, and the media as well, and the media in your reporting as to what is taking place in the oil and gas sector. Once we don't mind criticism in our management of the oil and gas sector, but it must be constructive and it must be factual. We can't pull a report from some analyst or pull a report from some other person who is an economist and say, you know what, Guyana should do this, or Guyana should do that, or Guyana is losing that, or Guyana is losing this. The situation is different in each country. Maybe the person analysis is based on Namibia, or Angola, or Oman, and it doesn't relate to what is happening in Guyana. But we can't just pull random reports and say, this is what Guyana should do. We got to look at the particular peculiarities to the country. We got to look at the risks that was involved in the exploration when the company started in 1999 too. And we got to look at whether we would have moved, if we hadn't moved ahead, if we would have been in a position where we are today as a country and as a people. You know, even the 100,000 cash grant, now we look at that. You tell me which country in the world, or which oil producing country in the world is giving their citizens, each and every citizen, $500 US. And the President mentioned it's not a one-off. There is no oil producing country in the world that is doing that. You look at it. Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest producers in the world, you tell me if they do that. The US is a big producer in the world, you tell me if they do that. Venezuela, well, that's another story. But you tell me which oil producing country in the world does that. None. Only Guyana. A small country now developing, only producing oil for a few years now, but yet we can do all of this for our people. So sometimes we need to look at the positives too, even though we want to be critical, and even though we might be generally opposition in nature, we also need to look at the positives coming out from the oil and gas sector. Because sometimes when you read some of the news articles, especially in certain newspapers, you believe as though we're not doing anything with regards to managing the sector. You don't hear that Guyana is only one of the few oil-producing countries in the world with a local content legislation in place. We don't see that. We would like to see that every day in the newspaper too. Just like how we see some of the topics every day in the newspaper, we would like to see too that Guyana is one of the few oil-producing countries in the world with a local content legislation in place. Not a local content policy, but a legislation. We would love to see that. We would love to see which oil-producing country has an updated Petroleum Activities Act as updated as 2024. Right, so some of these things need to be highlighted too. We want to see which country in the world move from exploration, move from discovery in May of 2015, production in December of 2019 to 600 or something thousand barrels in 2024. Which country will move from 600 and just over 600,000 barrels of oil to doubling that in another 3 years from now? So it means that we're doing something well. It means that we're managing the sector in an efficient, effective manner. Because these are not small companies we're working with. Exxon is by no means a small company. CNOOC and others by means of no small companies. These are international companies. And for a sector being new to us, I think the government, the people, and the country especially deserve credit for managing the sector in which we have for people to ensure that people benefit from the sector. Today we have over 6,500 Guyanese employed in the sector. We don't see that every day in the newspaper. Right? We don't see that. We don't see that we have EPA, we have GRA, we have GNBS, and we now have Ministry of Natural Resources on all three FPSOs. We don't see that. But we do. We have GRA, we have GNBS, we have EPA, and we have a rep from Ministry of Natural Resources. That is 4 government reps on each FPSO. We don't say that we have 24 young Guyanese who graduated from Guyana Technical Training College in 2024, and they're working on the Unity FPSO. We recently graduated 25, and they will go and work on the other FPSO. We need to say these things too, because it's an amazing achievement by a small country that is now growing out our oil and gas sector. So sometimes when we report negatively and we think that we're trying to embarrass, whether it's me or the Vice President and President, rather we are doing an injustice to our people and our country. Our people and our country, because these news, it gets out to the international stage, and people believe that we are a country of backward people. So we got to be careful in our reporting. Let us be balanced. We don't mind people being critical, but let us be balanced. And let it be constructive criticism, and let it be criticism that merits what we are trying to achieve too, because this is about our country. It's not about embarrassing me as the minister with responsibility, or the vice president who have overall responsibility, or the president of our country. But it is about all of us as Guyanese. And we have done well. You look at Suriname, and by no means I'm criticizing those countries, I'm just comparing. You look at Suriname, you look at Trinidad, you look at Venezuela close by to us, you look at the new oil-producing countries, Ghana, Namibia, and a few other countries in Africa, and you would see we're way ahead of them. You would see that. And by no means Venezuela is a new oil-producing country, but we're way ahead in terms of our framework to manage the sector and how effective we have managed it without any incident or without any major issue within the sector, while we're still ensuring that we audit these companies, we're still ensuring that the benefits derived from the oil and gas sector reaches our people directly. So sometimes we need to highlight those things too. I just wanted to say that because it hurts you sometimes when we try so hard. And, well, not me personally, but we have I mentioned before, a young, bright Guyanese team working at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Ggmc. And they work hard every single day and night. The job that they are doing in some countries, but again, I'm just comparing, not criticizing. The Ministry of Energy in Ghana, there are 4 ministers in that ministry, you can check it. There are a few hundred workers. In Guyana, it's just us, and we have a small team. And yet we can manage the sector in such an efficient manner. And being so effective too. And move at an unprecedented pace, almost incident-free. Almost incident-free. So sometimes we deserve the credit for that too. And I'm not saying me or the team, but our country. Because we cannot always paint our country in a negative light. All of us as Guyanese looks bad. So we will continue in 2025 to build out the sector. Building out the sector is a work in progress. Just like local content. When we passed the bill and we started the secretary, we said local content is a work in progress. Already you heard from Martin. Already so many Guyanese have benefited through the local content legislation. And even though there are 40 carve-outs or 40 services in Schedule 1 of the local content legislation, what we have seen, and Martin could attest to, what we have seen is that almost every single investor coming to Guyana is now looking for a partner, a Guyanese partner, or is looking to partner with a Guyanese company. And what I've seen too is not only in the oil and gas sector. If you look at the construction sector too, almost every major foreign investor has a local partner working with it. In mining, we're seeing the same thing. In forestry, we're seeing the same thing. I believe in agriculture, we're seeing the same thing. So Guyanese are getting opportunities to be involved and to work with foreign investors, which is good. Because in some cases, we don't have the resources, especially in the oil and gas sector, because the oil and gas sector is very capital intensive. And you know one of the biggest challenges that we have locally is the financing in the oil and gas sector. When we were investing in mining and forestry, we invested 20 million or 50 million Guyana dollars. That was fine, that was a lot of money. Now you got to invest millions of US dollars in the oil and gas sector. So it's a challenge for our local private sector. You speak with them, they will tell you the same thing. And that is why it's good that you're partnering with these international companies, because the international companies bring the resources or capital with them. They bring the expertise, they bring the train or the technical personnel, and our people are learning from them. So it's a process. I'm sure that in another couple of years, we will build so much capacity that our local companies can be engaged in the delivery of some of these very services that the international companies are doing today for the oil and gas sector. Because it's still new, just a few years, it doesn't mean 5 years as yet. So the local content legislation has brought tremendous, besides from direct employment, it has brought tremendous business opportunities for the private sector. And as media personnel, maybe you should reach out to some of the private sector or private entities who are engaged and let them tell you of some of the benefits, let them tell you of the amount of employment it created within their companies. And I think last year, energy conference we did, there was a testimonial from a transportation provider. He said that 4 years ago, he had 4 cars. Today, he has 104 cars. Maybe now, 1 year after, maybe about 200 cars now. So it just shows the kind of benefit. And as you move around, you see this. As you move around, because you're from the field, you move around a lot. And you see the benefits that are being derived because of the local content legislation. You see the amount of people who are now engaged in the oil and gas sector. The shore base, for example, the Green shore base, you would see 2 major Guyanese companies involved in that shore base across the river. There's so many other investments that is ongoing that Guyanese companies and Guyanese are involved in. So we are happy that that the local content legislation brought those opportunities. And as I mentioned, people are seeking, or foreign investors are seeking local partners, even if the service is not in Schedule 1. And that is something that we're very happy about. Not to say that we will not update the schedule. The President has mentioned, Vice President mentioned too, that we will update the schedule, but we need to ensure that we fully understand our local capacity and the resources available before we do so. We have had submission from the private sector, from GCCI. We've been working with them to set targets, and of course we will do consultation before any changes are being made to the legislation. Nevertheless, we have seen tremendous results from that. So we will continue working on building on that. There is still a few challenges as highlighted, and this is in response to the plans for 2025. Martin would have mentioned that there are still some challenges, and it's a working period, will be challenges. And I often say that if we go to a community, I go to the Atlanta. If we go to a community and they highlight 10 issues, and we solve those 10 issues, we can go back a month after, they will have another 10 issues. And that is how it is. That is how the process of development is. So it's similar to that. Local content is a work in progress, and there will be challenges. And that is why we have a competent person, Martin, and his team, to deal with those challenges. We have managed to work on payment for our local contractors, because our contract, again, financing is an issue. So if they're not paid within a particular time, it basically push them out of the sector. They don't have the resources to continue functioning. So we have worked with the companies to ensure that we reduce the payment period. Martin is even working to reduce that even further. As soon as we achieve that, we will let you know. We're trying to get it down maybe below 30 days, but it takes some work because we got to work with different companies and they have the different financial system, accounting system too. And these are foreign companies. But it is something that we're still working on addressing. Martin mentioned we still have the issue of fronting and all that. This is something that we will have to continuously deal with. And again, it should not be because these are Guyanese companies or Guyanese being engaged in this activity, which should not be, because legislation was set up to benefit Guyanese, not Guyanese to use it to smart the system and to take away benefits from us as a country. So I personally would like to call on all our Guyanese companies and Guyanese in general to ensure that they do not engage in that. That is selling yourself. That is selling your country. When we fought so hard to bring benefits to our people in our country, there are few people who would sell themselves and their country just for a few dollars. Sometimes our patriotism, I think we got to weight our patriotism a little more. And I often say in particular that Guyanese, sometimes when we only become patriotic when we leave Guyana. When we're in Guyana, we see everything bad about Guyana. But from the time we leave Guyana, we become Guyanese more than anybody else. Right? We wear our Guyana flag in our hand and bandana on our head. But when we're in Guyana, we don't want to do that. So our patriotism, I think, needs to really improve as Guyanese. We need to have a sense of pride in what we do. We can't have people selling themselves just because they hold a Guyana passport at the detriment of our country and our people. So we will continue working on those areas to strengthen the monitoring of local content so that more and more people can benefit. Training, as I mentioned, will continue, especially at the Guyana Technical Training College, because as I mentioned, we want our people to be employed in the oil and gas sector. But not as laborers, not as cleaners, not as sweepers, not as servers. Yes, nothing is wrong with those jobs. But that should not be the only job that Guyanese are involved in. There is nothing wrong with doing that. If that is your skill set, well then fine. But we want some of our people to work in the technical field. We want Guyanese petroleum engineers, reservoir engineers. We want our people to be working on the FPSO in a technical capacity. And so far, We have trained almost 50 young Guyanese at the Guyana Training College that are being employed, or deployed, offshore on the FPSOs and drill ships. So that does really bring success to us. We will continue doing so. I mentioned to a few, at least 8 to 10 persons are studying in China presently. They'll probably be back in another 2 to 3 years from now to be a part of the sector as engineers. And I think you heard already, it's well ventilated that soon we will, at some point in time soon, well, we have budget coming up on Friday, and then after budget we have the debates, then the examination, the estimates, so that will take some time. But I'm sure it's soon at some point in time after that, once everything is okay, we will table the oil spill bill. I think the Attorney General issued a statement that he has finished the draft. So that will be for the examine, and at some point in time we will table that. That is a modern piece of legislation. Again, if you check how many countries in the world, oil-producing countries in the world that have legislation like that in place, probably you won't find any, or just a few that have that legislation like that in place. And as was mentioned, this piece of, this bill, it's a bill now, this bill will not only cover oil spill in the exploration production area offshore, but it will also cover transportation of petroleum products and crude as well too. So if there is any mishap, boat accident that we've seen in some countries, it means that it will be covered here too. And it will speak to cleanup, it will speak to compensation, it will speak to restoration, which are critical areas in dealing with any oil spill. But God forgive, I'm hoping and I pray, and all of us should too, that we should never have to use this piece or this bill when it's enacted, this legislation, that we may never experience an oil spill. So far we are satisfied with the level of safety, with the level of precaution, and the operation of the operator offshore in their operations. So much so that we have not had any major incident over the last, from exploration to now. We hope and wish that it will continue like that, but nevertheless, we need this in place in the eventuality of anything happening. Martin also mentioned the app, the local content app, which we've been working on for some time now. But we want to ensure that when we release the app, there is no issue with it, it is fully registered, and it is simple for the end users. Because it makes no sense having an app, but end users cannot use it or access it properly. So that app we're hoping will be completed for our NG conference in February 18th, and we can have it launched there by His Excellency at the NG conference to have that app. And the app will be available to anyone. However, only those who are registered and have a local content certificate will be able to access certain capabilities or access certain information and can carry out certain operation with regards to local content opportunities, especially with jobs and the provision of goods and services. So everyone can access it. You can see when there are jobs or vacancies available. You can see when companies are requesting goods or services, but only those with local content certificate that are registered, that is the Guyanese companies, can actually access the portal, that's the word I was looking for, Martin, to ensure that you can actually be a part of the procurement process. So it will be simple, it will bring notifications to your phone, because a lot of people and companies have been saying that they don't know when companies have vacancies, or they don't know when they request goods or services. So now you will have the app on your phone, and every time a company requests 5 workers, 10 workers, pops up on your phone. Anytime a company requests service for anything, it pops up on your phone once you have that app. So almost everybody can access the app and see what is needed. So the opportunities will come to you. And then the registered companies can actually respond to the app or those registered for jobs on the local content secretariat website. The regulations, we're working with on the regulations for the Petroleum Activities Act as promised. We're working on the gas strategy because, as you know, the President has mandated us have access to shift some of our attention to gas and gas development. So that you will see a lot more of that in 2025, a lot more engagement, and hopefully move towards some solid plans and decisions in 2025 or later. We are in the process too of finalizing the seismic, the companies should be do the seismic survey. As you recall, we went out for an auction, but you know the challenges, we highlighted the challenges up front with that. As either we had waited and do the survey, which probably would take 18 months or so, or 2 years to do, and then go out. But we decided we were going to go out without the survey, which is not sometimes the ideal situation. So what we are going to do now is to engage with these companies to shoot the seismic so that we can have those data available. So in the future, when we decide to go at another roundabout auction, it simply means that we will do so from a more informed position with data that is available and obviously will be more attractive. So these are some of the things that we plan to, just some of it that we plan to do in 2025. With regards to CGX email, the position remains the same. The position remains the same. There is no change to the position with regards to how we're dealing or handling with the CGX matter. The license would have expiration license like any other company would have expired. We had Repsol, I believe. Repsol license expired sometime in 2023. We treated the matter the same way. Repsol, at the end of the license, the state takes possession of the block. So the Kanuku block is back with the state, like the quarantine block is back with the state now. So it's the same way we deal with all companies. And not to say that we are treating one company separate or different from the other. The same system that was used with Repsol, the same system was actually used with CGX too. The expiration of your license, the block obviously goes back to the state. There is no cost recovery from that because you didn't move to production. It's only if you move to production then the cost recovery kicks in. That is your risk that you took. At that time, I think Repsol would have invested over $500 million in exploration. They made two small two small discoveries, but unfortunately license ended. In the case of CGX, we had given them extra time for appraisal because once the law also states that once there's a discovery and they notify us, there's a notice of discovery, of which I believe can lead to commerciality, then we need to give them additional time for appraisal program, which we did. That has expired too. So there is nothing legally that we can do with regards to any further extension or that matter. The company either have to reapply, like some companies would have, or wait until we have another bid round and if we decide to put that block as part of it. But that is the situation right now. So nothing has changed with that, and we have not treated them differently from any other company. The same way we dealt with Repsol when their license came to an end. The production for 2024, I was advised that we had 225 lifts in 2024, which again, as I started out with my earlier opening remarks to say it was a good year for the natural resources sector, and that we have seen increases in almost every commodity across all the sectors. And that is a significant increase from 2023 again, mainly because of the TOR project coming into production and the full optimization of the FPSO in 2024 compared to when it started out in 2023. Again, we will see an increase in 2025, because we have the one Guyana FPSO, which should be here late in the year, which should be commissioned and start up late in the year. So we should have some amount of production from the one Guyana FPSO in 2025. As to how much or how early, at this point in time, may not be able to give you that, because it still depends on how fast it will get here and how fast Exxon can actually set up that FPSO. And the time frame too depends on weather conditions, the seas, and a number of other issues that that they have to deal with offshore in setting up everything and move to production. So at some point later, I'm sure I can give you a final startup date for the one Guyana FPSO. But from all reports that we have received from Exxon, it will start up in later 2025. So we will see some production from it. As to how much, I'll tell you later. On the GT claims, we often get questions on the gas to energy project from the media requesting information, requesting data. But let me I'm not sure if it is clear, but the Ministry of Natural Resources is assisting in this project. When it started out, we were fully engaged because Exxon was part of the initial conversation, and we were responsible for the pipeline project. Hence our engagement, because they are part of our sector. But this is primarily handled by the Prime Minister office. The agreements, even the budgetary allocation goes to the Prime Minister office. I'm sure you saw that, and you will see that again on Friday. So even the arbitration is handled by the task force and the Prime Minister office. But I know, more based on reports, that is ongoing. As to how it is progressing, I may not be in a position to give you an accurate position at this point in time. But I can endeavor to find out and to get more information on it for you. Because it's a serious matter, and I don't want to mislead you in any way to give you misinformation. But as I mentioned, we are not the direct agency dealing with it. Otherwise, I would have been in a position to do so. In regards to verification, I would have mentioned GRA, Ggmc, BPA. These agencies are offshore monitoring. I think we've been through this a number of times. I'm looking forward to the headline tomorrow to say that there is no budgetary allocation for oil verification, without saying that Ggmc, Ministry of Natural Resources, EPA, GNBS, GRA, all these entities must be here. The GNBS is the custodian for the pump to ensure that and no discharge offloading can be done without GRA or GNBS on board that vessel. You know, there's a lot of system. The last time we had this press conference here, we had a presentation done by the technical staff showing that we do have a dashboard monitoring production. I think it's a 10 minutes interval, right? At some point in time we can get in real time. because the fiber optic cable and all that will be implemented very soon. And we are working towards setting up our one data room and all that. We are working towards one but build out the sector in a modern way that we can manage it almost real time. But you would appreciate and understand it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. But we will continue to do our best to manage the sector for our people. Thank you.
Thanks,
Minister.
for that. Just very quickly, in addition to the named government entities, there's also contracted international third parties that is doing the verification and keeping international standards, and there's a terminal. So I recognize a few other persons now. The young lady from Guyana, the gentleman there in the white shirt, and we'll take it from there, okay? So yeah, I think we should roll it back too. Oh, hi Marcel, you're good day today. Guys, I know we've gone a bit into the lunchtime, so I'm sorry about that, but we did provide some refreshments and snacks at the back in case anyone needs to go one reason or the other, alright? Thanks.
Hi, I have about 4 questions. Firstly, can we get an update on the auction? Since 4 of the 6 bidders accepted the new PSA terms, when will we see those contracts being signed? And as a follow-up to Kimo's question, CGX has partially operationalized the Berkeley Port. Does the government have confidence that the company will get the Berkeley Port fully operationalized, considering the previous delays that they have faced? Also, how soon can we expect approval for Exxon's request to increase production at the Liza 2? And also, can you speak to exploration activities at the Orange block?
Good afternoon, it's Mel Parker Newsroom. Minister, can you say if the local content sensitization campaign was rolled out last year? And if yes, can you provide some details on how this was done?
The gentleman in the white shirt.
Minister Antonio Day from Nigerian News. Just a follow-up question for my colleague Kimo. You mentioned about the the auction. Could you say if Exxon was able to relinquish the 20% of the sample block? And secondly, as it relates to the audit, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. You said that you submitted $240 million. Could you say if Exxon has approved these figures? Because I could remember you saying that if they don't, they will have to lead to arbitration. Thanks.
The young lady right there, Mr. Shabral, and then Marcel. Will you come up with the others, okay?
Saskia Warwick, NCN News. Minister Bharrat, now that the mineral mapping project has been on the way for some time, how has the updated data been utilized so far to assist small and medium-sized miners, and also been assisted in making informed decisions in terms of land allocation and environmental management? Secondly, could you provide an update on the progress made by the companies that were being consulted to restart operation at the Troy Resources area? Have any farm proposals been submitted this year?
Minister, just one question I have now. I want to know whether you can give us an update on discussions with Suriname and joint exploration and exploitation of gas reserves.
Marcel.
My question is on mining and on bauxite mining. Gold mining and bauxite mining. For gold mining, I wanted an update on mercury eradication, that program, and what has been the challenges? Why are we still in 2025 so far back when it comes to the eradication plan? And 2, on bauxite mining, I don't know if you'll be able to provide the figures now, but I had asked for a breakdown according to the companies for their figures for last year, if I can get that. Not just the overall, but per company. That's my two for now.
Thank you very much, Minister, and the colleagues for the questions. Just before Minister responds, just to add the gentleman in relation to the audit, the government again position remains is that the 214 is not accepted. Right?
So you were trying to say if they
That's fine now. That's fine now. Right? That's what was the position. We do have a number of questions that Minister answer. I think we may also have. On the auction very quickly, specifically to say is that indeed the companies that have indicated acceptance of the PSA, they've been asked to make the final submission of some of the documents, including the financial statements, and also a number of other legal and regulatory documents in keeping with the PAA of 2023. Those submissions have been made for 4 of the companies, and we're in the final stages of that review. As you could infer, it's a number of consortiums, so you have to do review for every one of the consortium partners. So that is well on the way, and as it relates to challenges at this stage, there is no challenge with those companies relative to the submissions made.
Return to forward.
Sorry?
Return to forward and submit.
I can share the information you just have. Thanks, Minister Martin.
Thank you, yes, and again, let me thank the members of the meeting who raised questions. Myself, I did give but I think you want to break down the figures by companies, right? Yeah, we'll get a breakdown, but the final figure for bauxite production, 1,703,121 tons in comparison to 523,732 in 2023. So it's an increase of 225%, mainly because of the investment by Forestry and the new Mars project and the new logistics they have in place in terms of shipping. They actually have a Panamax vessel that can ship out from the mouth of the Demerara River directly to Asia or to Europe. Oh, you have the figures. Right.
So very quickly, myself, for the purposes of the bauxite figure, for 2024, Forestry is 1,529,151, 1,529,151, and Ggmc is 173,972. All right. If you want it for the previous years, I have to give you also. All right.
Thanks, yes, and we have received a commitment from both companies that in 2025 the production would be even increase even more significantly. Foreign bauxite, if I may mention, in 2024 they were engaged in mostly stripping, right, as the overboarding, removal of overboarding. So we will definitely see an increase in their production in 2025. While Forestry is poised to increase their production significantly. So we can provide us. Now on the other question, I'm trying to deal with mining board before I come back to oil and gas again to close up. With regards to mercury, you're fully aware that we have signed on to the Minamata Convention to eradicate the use of mercury by 2027. But not to eradicate, but to minimize or to reduce the use of mercury, and we have set ourselves a target that we should reduce the use of mercury by then, and then move to eradicating totally. Now, we have gone a long way. The large-scale company, for example, is operating now. There is no use of mercury. The other large-scale company, and we've signed an agreement with, again, there will be no use of mercury, cyanidation they'll be using, which is better and is higher for, higher in terms of recovery rate, is better for the recovery rate. Many medium-scale approvals that we're giving now, especially new medium-scale approvals, we ensure that there's a clause there to say mercury should not be used or mercury is prohibited. The new operation, for example, the Marudi operation, in that agreement, it states no use of mercury. We have seen and we've inspected the operation there, and we are satisfied that they're adhering to the agreement so far. At least when we inspect, we've not seen any traces of that. There are a few other medium-scale operations that we would have given permit to, that they are not using mercury. As a matter of fact, Deputy Commissioner Technical is here, Jimmy, Mr. Reese. He will be able to tell you a little more if you want some of the technical information as to what system is being used now. But there is a system that we have looked at in Suriname that actually brought good results, not using mercury, and it has increased the recovery rate. We're trying to get our miners to buy into that system and to start using that system in Guyana. The challenge is with the smaller miners. The challenge is with the smaller miners, because if we're going to say to a miner that use this system, what is the concentrator or whatever, now they will have to invest maybe 5 million, 3 million for whatever the cost is to set up that system. So if we should say to the smaller miners, you have to stop now and use this system, basically we're putting them out of operation. As you know, the smaller miners, it's difficult for them to go and invest right now in a system of $5 million or $10 million. Even though it will increase the recovery rate, but some of them are just not in a position to do so. You go to Mali, you go to Barticle, and you meet with those small miners, they will tell you that they're not in a position right now to do so. We've been trying to get them to work in groups, but you understand the challenge with that too, because we've been looking at a similar system at Troy with the small miners, not the big operation, with the small miners, to have all of them working together and having one central location where they process the ore, like a toll processing system. But the challenge is because they are spread out, and getting their materials to that central point adds cost to them too. And the difficulty in doing that, because a small miner might not have a truck, might not have access to a truck and move his material from one location to another to process at a central area. The difficulty it poses to them. So it's mostly the small miners that have a challenge. One is the investment cost that we have to work with them on. Grouping them, try that, but sometimes they work in different areas. So that is another challenge too. But we have our national action plan, which lay out the process in which we will follow towards the possible eradication of it. The other challenge too is that there is no alternative that is affordable and that is available. There are alternatives, but they are not affordable to the small miners. So we need an alternative that is affordable, that is acceptable, that is environmentally friendly, and that it is cost effective at the same time for small miners. Otherwise, we put in more pressure on our people, especially the smaller miners. However, we've been taking other steps. Our environmental department, Ggmc, have been taking steps to work with miners so that we minimize the effect of it on our environment. This year especially, we're going to monitor these mining operations to ensure that everybody, or the operations, they have what we call a settling pond or a tailings pond. Because in the past, we find that some miners just go and dig a pit, they mine, and then they discharge the water directly in the creek, which is bad, which should not happen. So this year, Mr. Reese, who is in charge of that department, he starts with doing that, ensuring that we enforce this, that miners must have settling ponds or paving ponds, and they don't discharge directly into. So there are other things that we can do to minimize the effect on the environment while we work with especially small miners, because I see soon, already large scale, they're not using more. I see soon at the medium scale level, we can move away from it. Because the medium scale miners, they're happy to move away too, because it increases the recovery rate. The new system increases the recovery rate. But the smaller miners, the challenge, they would love to, but the challenge is the investment in the new system that they will have to use. So we'll have to continue working with them, and at the same time, try to put system in place to minimize the effect it has on the environment. So far, and thank God, we haven't had any major issues, environmental issues that is, with regards to the use of it. So it means that Ggmc is monitoring and is doing something good with regards to that. But our commitment is there. I want to say that our commitment is there to a possible eradication as soon as possible. On the mineral mapping, the mineral mapping project has started only a few months now, but the idea behind the mineral mapping project is to assist miners and to ensure that we continue mining activities in Guyana while at the same time safeguarding our environment and especially our forests. That is the whole idea behind the mineral mapping. It ties into our low carbon development strategy, as you're aware, because once we are in a better position to point miners to land where there is signs of mineralization, then it becomes better for the miners that they can do little prospecting. They don't have to invest too much money in prospecting, and there is no disruption to a forest or a large forested area either. So that is the whole idea behind the mineral mapping. Similar to we completed the National Forest Inventory. So now the Guyana Forestry Commission is in a better position to, when we issue a concession, we know that there are trees to harvest there. We know how many. We know the species. We know the diameter, what it should be now or what should be next 10 years. We have those information. So we can make more informed decisions in issuing forest concessions. Similarly, the mineral mapping will help Ggmc to issue mining claims or blocks that have signs of mineralization. You'd appreciate that the last inventory was done 40 years ago. 40 years ago or even more than that. So the mineral map and the information that we have now, it is very old. A lot has changed since then, especially with the equipment used then and the technology used then. We have much better equipment and technology today so that we can have a far more accurate survey of our mineral resources, and we can point miners in the correct direction, which ties into our low carbon development strategy of ensuring that we minimize any damage to our forests. And it ties into our general policy as a government too. Our policy as a government is to ensure that there is economic development and that we balance economic development with environmental sustainability. So this is a project that ties directly into that. While we say that we are not going to stop mining or logging, but we are going to ensure that we do it in a responsible and sustainable and informed manner. So this ties into that. So rather than allocating a block or a concession where there is no sign of mineralization, in another year or two, we will be in a far better position to update our mineral resources and only allocate land where there are signs of mineralization. Because every single miner that goes to Ggmc wants land with gold. I don't know if the commissioner can actually see where the gold is right now. but you will have to wait on that. Because if you're mining, you want land with gold. So that is why we're doing this. It's a lot of money. In the past, that is why we did not do it. Right? You might ask why we didn't do it in 40 years, but it's a very costly exercise. Very costly. Even now it is very costly. That is why we are focusing on some of the main mining districts. The Northwest Mining District, the Peruni Mining District, as well as the Mazaruni Mining District. Those are the three larger mining districts. We don't have much operations in the Maurice area now. And we in the Marudi area, in Region 9, it's only the Marudi area. So the mineral market is ongoing, and I'm sure that will go a long way to helping miners. That's the answer to the question that was asked. Added to Marcel, question on mercury, going back to that. We would have invested along with Ggmc in what we call riverine equipment that we brought from Alaska, is in Guyana presently. And it's finally here, and we're going to put it into testing operation, not operation, but we put it into test, because it's an equipment that has worked well in Alaska, mercury free. It can actually, in mining terms, it can pick up the fine gold, which we have a lot in Guyana, because that is why our recovery rate is low too, because the fine gold escaped the system we have, and that is why the settling point is important. But this equipment can pick up those fine gold, thereby increasing your recovery rate, and it is mercury free. So we have invested with GGD, and we're working in partnership with them. Once this works, then we could be able to say to especially the medium scale miners, invest in this equipment, because it makes sense to do so. We can pool small miners together and say, look, this is an equipment that you should invest in. Because if your recovery rate increases, it makes perfect sense. Your production costs remain the same, or rather than recovering 40%, you recover 70%. So it makes sense to invest in it. On the Troy resources, I mentioned the last time that we've been engaging a number of investors. I want to say that yes, we have maybe, I think it's about five or six proposals that were submitted by local and international companies that we're looking at right now. AG office is completing the process of the total acquisition, but at some point in time soon we will make a decision in regards to the proposals that we would have received. At that point too, I will probably speak more on the proposals, not wanting to put any one of the companies at disadvantage at this point in time with the details, but I can say safely that we have about five proposals submitted, serious proposals by local and international companies. In some cases, it's a mixture, as I mentioned before. Foreign companies partnering with local companies. So there is a genuine interest in Troy resources, and we as a government, we are pleased that there is interest, because our intention is to have it restart as early as possible. I think PS would have answered the question on the audit, clarified the question on the audit. The other issue I have, the other question I have here is on the local content workshop. We had several workshops in 2024, which will continue into 2025. I personally attended one of those workshops at the Lenora Technical Institute, Martin. At the Lenora Technical Institute. Martin, however, would have held a few other workshops. I know in Amsterdam we had one, and Irvington there is one. I think he had a few others, as well as Martin and his team has been on field visits almost every single week to different areas, different schools, monitoring companies, especially school. I think Martin went to a few schools as well and speak to students on the local content and the opportunities that lies in oil and gas through the local content legislation. So that is ongoing. With regards to the OPS did give an update on the auction. With regards to the port, CGX port, in terms of operationalizing the port, I visit Maurice often on Mauritius. I visit often, so I've seen some of the activities there. With regards to the intended use of it, I don't think initially that was the intended use of it. It was supposed to support, it was mainly supposed to support the oil and gas sector, the exploration in the quarantine block. At that time, you can recall CGX did have share or holdings in the Demerara as well as the Borbis block too. I think Demerara, Borbis and quarantine. They would have given up the rights in Demerara and Borbis, which is back with the state. And then we spoke earlier about the quarantine block. So I think the port facility was mainly to support the activities in those blocks. However, I know it's being used for other purpose now, which is good. But I'm sure at some point in time we'll have to engage the company on how do we move forward with that facility. With regards to the production optimization, we did receive requests from the company indeed to optimize production. I think it's Unity and Prosperity as well too. What we have done is that we have an independent consultant. EPA is fully engaged. EPA is fully engaged in this because they play a major role in ensuring that they give an objection to the optimization because it has to tie into the environmental permit. On our side, to give final approval, we have contracted a third party international consultant to look at this matter. So as soon as they would have concluded their report, we'll be in a better position, which hopefully soon we can be in a better position to either say no or yes to the optimization. At this point in time, I don't want to give an indication that it's either way. Because we wait on that report, we wait on EPA as well too, I'll have to speak with EPA as well too, before we can actually say yes or no. But again, the government is not against production. We have said that from day one, but it must be done in a safe manner. It must be done in a manner that will not cause any issue with equipment or with regards to the environment. Once we are satisfied with that and we are comfortable, I'm sure we'll be in a position to say, to give a final decision on it. But as of now, we are waiting that report. Orange Juke exploration, of course, the Orange Juke, they would have submitted their work program, and we expect that they will fulfill their work program. As a matter of fact, all the operators, not only Eco, but all the other operators. We have Exxon also operating in the Kanji block. They're also doing exploration in Stockbrook. We will have a new operator in the Kiteshore block. As you know, Exxon will have given up their interest in that block. The new operator will have to fulfill the same work program. There will be no change to the work program. And of course, Eco Atlantic in the Orange Juke block. They too will have to fulfill the work program. With regards to I think the last issue I have here is the relinquishment. And I'm happy to say that between the Ggmc, among the Ministry, Ggmc and Exxon, we have already agreed in principle the acreage, the submission of the report, and the acreage that will be relinquished. We And I just want to say, because I'm not sure if it's clear, that if it is a producing block for the relinquishment, we must excise out or take out, because some people might calculate it that the block is X size and that 20% must be this amount. The simple maths, once we know maths problem, that if it's 20,000, then 20% will be X amount. However, it's a producing block, and you will know this from the experience in the oil and gas sector, that we need to take out the production area, we need to take out the appraisal area, and the area where there is potential commercial interest. Right? That's in the PSA, we can't go against that. So once you excise that out, or you take that out of the acreage, then whatever is left, you relinquish the 20% of that. So I just want to make that clear, because some people might do the plain maths. That Starbuck is this size, and you're supposed to get this amount. So I just want to say that once we finalize that, we will actually, once we finalize that, we will give you the exact acreage. That should be finalized very soon. I think now it's just the mapping as to where we take it from. Right? It's not as simple as it may seem. It's a very complex, especially with blocks that are producing. Because you have LISA 1 year, LISA 2 year, Payara, you have the other developments, and you have discoveries, you have appraisal areas. So we now have to decide where we're taking these acreage from. But it has to be together in consultation. Because at the same time, the company will have to work with us on it. So once we finalize that, we'll give you a full report on it with the exact acreage. But I can tell you, yes, the process has been advanced significantly, almost to completion. So I think those were the questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Dennis. Yes, I recall you raised this at, I think, at the press conference. But PS is the our point person in the ministry. It's more technical now. We'll be sharing information with Suriname. Suriname will be sharing information with us. So basically, the two groups will be meeting virtually at a technical level, sharing information. You would know then is that they're the ones just sharing information, doing all the technical work, but the decisions will have to be made at the policy level. We haven't reached that stage yet where the technical team is in a position to prepare a report and submit it for policy direction. But I don't want to preempt, but you know, Suriname is going into election vote soon. Right? Their election, I think, is in May. So they already started campaigning already. So I'm not sure how far we will go with it from now to then. But from our end, we are willing to continue the talks. As I mentioned, yes, McKenzie, he is the focal person. And the meeting that we had with the Vice President, myself, and the reps from Suriname, Minister Ramden and others, have identified the PS, Bobby and others to work with them. And they'll be doing that. They're constant engagement, sharing of information. But we haven't reached the stage where there's a report for policy decision. Mainly, and I want to think that they would slow down now because of Suriname's election.
What kind of technical work or information are you referring to?
I won't be able to give you figures, but we've been looking at the reserves, that's one. Obviously, we've been looking at the reserves on both sides. That's a big part of the conversation, because if we don't know the reserves, then we can't move forward. That's the first thing. Sharing of information on reserves and looking at other technical cooperation too. Maybe PS, if you want, you can, because you've been in engagement or other things, you can do so.
Thanks, Minister. We're going to take the next round of questions now. I recognize Kimo, Ms. Marshall, and the young lady right here. Okay. Oh, sorry. Charles, I'm sorry, Kimo's here is blocking. Yeah. Let's start with Mr. Brown first.
Jarvine, Evening News. I have two follow-up questions. Since the issuance of permits to the 112 small miners at Troy Resources, have any more permits been issued? And on the oil block auction, what is the timeline your ministry is working with to issue licenses for the blocks from that previous bid round and eventually to get into the second planned bid round?
Just a follow-up to Kimal's question. I know that probably in November, so an update was provided, but just for clarity, from the 225 lifts, could you say what was the total production with respect to barrels, how many barrels of oil were produced, and how many of those 225 lifts went to government? Would you be able to give us the total revenue generated with respect to the lifts received by Guyana and the royalties, the total numbers?
Ms. McKenzie, you mentioned that the third audit commenced in November and is expected to be completed by March. Is the government comfortable with such a short period being allocated to review 19.6 billion expenses?
Thank you. Minister, you mentioned that ExxonMobil submitted an application to also optimize production at the Prosperity FPSO. Exxon has said that they want to increase production at Unity from about 250 to 270. But what is their new production target for the Prosperity FPSO? P.S. By the way, what is the name of the Norwegian firm that is going to be working in association with EHG and Martindale on the 2021 to 2023 oil audit? And I just wanted to follow up with you, Minister, on CGX Frontiera, because based on the public statements by yourself and the Vice President, as well as CGX and Frontiera, the situations, will you compare them to Repsol, but they seem to be different in that Repsol had asked for a brand new license, while CGX is asking for an extension to appraise a discovery that they have not appraised as yet. And since CGX has since December indicated that they sent the government a letter activating a 60-day period during which they can negotiate with the government to resolve all disputes. Since your position and that of the Vice President, which you both said publicly, appear to be immovable, are you in talks with CGX and Frontier right now? And or have you resolved that after the 60-day period ends, you will move to the next stage of dispute resolution with them? That is arbitration or resolution by sole experts. Thank you.
Any other question? Final call, any other question? Okay, final comment. Yes, I don't think so. That's true. I understand. It's roughly almost 4 hours now. I'm sorry about that. But we wanted to ensure that you guys get a chance to ask a question. So we're going to ask Minister. Yeah, there was an intention today as well. So we're going to ask Minister to respond to some of the questions raised. But just before he does, Kimon, very quickly, I'll provide you with the name of the firm that is providing the support to VHE and Martindale. They're actually petroleum geologists, and they're doing the technical aspect. I'll provide you before you leave, right? And in terms of the audit, the young lady, as mentioned, the Guyana Revenue Authority is the leading the charge in terms of the audit. The MNR is providing technical and regulatory support. As relates to the duration is in keeping with the audit charter, and the GR has assured us that the work can be completed within the time frame. And all the bidders who submitted their bids also said the same thing, the time frame is adequate. Right? Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. I think we're developing our application to the Ministry of Natural Resources press conference at 3. I think we're going to have the 4th hour now. That's why Martin and is coming late. Avoid the early statement. But surprisingly, okay, so surprisingly, I made a short opening statement thinking that I don't want to drag you out until after lunch. But nevertheless, I'm happy because this is the purpose of the engagement, is to give you information and for you to see clarity for the people of Guyana. And I want to assure you there is no secret or nothing that is hiding or nothing that we don't want to share with the people. Now, let me start with the one on CGX. Kimo. This is the third time Kimo asked him the CGX. In the last 3 hours, only Kimo got shares at CGX. All right. Now, there is no dispute. That's the first thing. There is no dispute between the government and CGX. As you mentioned, Vice President has made public statement that basically the license has expired. Right? I explained to you and I draw the reference with Repsol and the Kanuku block. Repsol, after the time expired, they basically understand and the block went back to the state. In the case of CGX, I did mention too that because they made the discovery and they had applied for time to do the appraisal, additional time was given to CGX, because when you check the time frame, you will see that they got additional time to do the appraisal program. The law states clearly that after the appraisal program, there is no other provision extended beyond that. That the next step after that is for the company to move to production. They start negotiating with the government a production sharing agreement and move towards production. Unfortunately, when time elapsed, they were not in a position to do so. And before that happened too, there was engagement. Not now. So to answer your question, there is no talks now, but there were engagements then. I personally met with the team from CGX Frontier, myself, PS, Bobby, several technical officers, legal officers as well too. We met with them, we had an engagement with them then, and they understood fully the position of our government, because there is no way legally that you can extend beyond the appraisal period. Right? They have to take the step as Repsol to reapply, or you wait until a bid run and you get to the block if it is available. But there is no other legal provision. So even if, let's say on my own accord, that I have a soft spot for them and I want to protect your interests, or share a scheme on, you're saying, even I can't do that as minister responsibility petroleum, because there is no provision in the law to do it. So it's not really a dispute. It's not an issue we have with the company. It's just that we got to follow the law. The license expired. They made a discovery. They were given time for appraisal program. After the appraisal program, you got to move to production. There is no provision in the law to say that we can extend your appraisal period or we can give you a second appraisal period. Unfortunately, because I know these companies make big investments and it's only fair too, but the law doesn't provide for it and we have to work with the law. So just to clear it up, there is no dispute. We are not in talks with them now because our position was made clear, but we did meet with them before the expiration of the appraisal period. And we did engage them and they did understand the position clearly at that point in time. On the prosperity optimization, the minimum capacity, I think, for that vessel is 230, 220. Prosperity. So the application is to ramp up to 250, right? To move up to 250. That is the application they've made for prosperity. The application for Unity, I didn't know about Unity. So as I mentioned, no decision on that as yet. We are waiting the report from the consultant that we have, and then we'll have to do it in consultation with EP as well too. In this case, it's not, we have nothing against it as I mentioned, but it's just safety concerns to our equipment over here. I say our because it's our too, our equipment as well as the environment and ensuring that nothing happens that we don't want. In terms of the Vickram, now I want to personally apologize because I agree with you. We should have concluded at least some of the agreements with regards to the Vickram. It has taken a long time. But what we wanted, and I think Vice President did mention it, we wanted a PSA that applies to all the bidders. We could have concluded this process if we had done a PSA for Exxon, one for Total, one for the international group, one for Civil. We could have concluded long before we had done that. But that is not what we wanted. We wanted to have a PSA that's accepted by all the bidders and a PSA that any future bidders will have to work with. And I think that is what took the time. Because many times we have to engage these companies and you need all of them together. Sometimes they don't have the time because we deal with different time zones too. And we haven't been able to conclude a PSA that is accepted by all the bidders. And we don't want to be in a position where we have a PSA for different companies. That is not the ideal position to be in. And you would agree with me. So I think that is what took a lot of time to get a PSA that is accepted by all the bidders. Luckily now we have four companies have accepted it. We have to get the others to ensure that they accept it too, so that we can say this is the PSA we'll be using, and this is the PSA we use going forward. In terms of future bid rounds, there is no decision on that as yet. As a matter of fact, I mentioned the seismic survey that we are embarking on with these international companies. Once we finalize the program, we will have to make a decision whether we will wait until after those surveys or whether we go ahead before the survey. We haven't made a decision as yet. But you would realize that sometimes it might be better to wait until the survey. I'm just saying it might be better to wait until that because we'll have more information available and then we may have more interest generated based on the information from those studies. I think the final question here is on the lifts. I did mention that we had 225 lifts in 2024, of which 28 went to the government of Guyana. I think seven for Destiny, 11 Unity, and 10 Prosperity, GOGs. And you know the lifts is $1 million. So I think those were the question. Oh, the revenue, PS will have to provide that. I don't have that information here with me right now.
Sorry, if I may add. As you're aware, let's go all the way up to December 31st, right? And the process of the lift also includes the verification, the seal, and a number of other things. So we actually in the process of having those verifications done. So if I were to give you a figure now, it will be a preliminary figure and not actually the final figure. So that's the reason why it hasn't been mentioned, but we can tell you the amount of lists that has been done, right? Thanks.
The other thing too is that there's no fixed price for a lift. It depends on the market price, right? The Brent price on the market. And you know now we're getting, I want to close by saying, which is a good thing, maybe this should be highlighted too when you report tomorrow, that for the very first time we're getting a premium of over $1. A premium of over $1 by one of the companies, I think it's Destiny, that is marketing Destiny Crude. We're actually getting a premium of just over $1. You can recall when we started out in 2020, Shell was marketing our crude. We were paying Shell to market our crude. After that, I think it was BP, then Saudi Aramco, and now we have these companies, two companies, matter of fact, that are paying us a premium to offtake our crude. We have BP Energy, which is paying close to $1, as well as JU, which is paying more than $1 for the first time. And I don't, again, I don't think there are many countries in the world, especially small producers, that can actually attract a premium as Guyana. Right? So I just wanted to highlight that in closing.
That's for Bharrat, sir?
Yes.
So one final point before Minister gives a closing to Ms. Marshall's question. As it relates to the revenue, and in particular, I spoke to the explained to you that every single lift that is executed by the government, that revenue is reported in the Natural Resource Fund, right? Down to the last cent. So once you go to the NRF, you can get every single revenue, and you'll also get every single cent paid for the royalty, right? So you don't, I mean, I'm happy to give it to you now, but all information is actually there for every single lift that is reported by the government. From since 2020 to now, it's all available there.
And also, the Bank of Guyana report definitely too. And I'm sure you're going to hear it Friday from Minister Singh.
I know, but you could give it to us in advance.
But you say, no, but the Bank of Guyana report too, you will have it in the Bank of Guyana report for sure. That's where most of the media houses will get their revenue from the Bank of Guyana. And that is accurate. That's the same report we will give to you in any case. Because we received that from the Bank of Guyana. Right? So anyway, let me thank you very much. I think we had a very good session. I think it was time well spent because we owe these explanations to you so that you can disseminate it to our people, and that we want to maintain high transparency and accountability at the Ministry of Natural Resources. I look forward for us working together throughout the entire 2025. Thank you.